So we'll just dive right in. How to design for the disengaged. So again, Environmental and a little bit about Aptive. We are a US-based pest control company. So we have three primary stakeholders that our department works with: operations, which is our field unit, our customer solutions center, and sales. And each one of our stakeholders is wonderful, but presents their own obstacles when it comes to engagement. Everyone enjoys our trainings, enjoys the fact that we're there to make them for them, and they request a whole lot. However, operations and our solutions center tend to want to front load everything into onboarding and say that agents and field techs cannot come off of calls, cannot come off the field. Once they're onboarded, they don't have time for training, or they'll say things like, we'll do it during the off season, or we'll have technicians do it in their vehicles in between appointments. And it's always very fun to have a conversation around why that is not a good idea. Sales presents a different challenge. Most of our sales reps are 1099 contract workers, meaning they are not compensated or incentivized for taking trainings, and therefore we cannot require them to take the trainings. So we can really suggest that they do it, but on their own time with no pay. Because they are not full-time employees, they also don't have access to our LMS, so we have to have different hosting platforms that they can actually access to get to our trainings. So I say this to just say maybe some of these obstacles sound very familiar to you. Maybe others are experiencing this at your company. If not, regardless, we are all competing in the attention economy, where human attention is the scarcest and most valuable resource in this economy. Like, people are flooded, absolutely inundated with tons of content distraction these days. Most of it is algorithmically optimized for them specifically and to capture their attention. And our training exists amongst all that. So what earns attention? In this attention economy, the currency is trust. People are going to give their attention to sources they trust to provide value and respect their time. And that's really key. So basically, what we're wondering is, does the benefit outweigh the cost? When I gave the really scarce resource of my time and attention to this, did the benefits make it worth it? So every interaction with your content, training or otherwise, is either going to build trust or burn it. If you've given a training that didn't feel like it provided value and respect the time of your audience, they're going to be a little less likely to engage with whether they're required to or not, to really give their full attention to your training. So how do we earn trust then? Well, what earns trust is personalized and relevant content, things that we feel like are really tailored to us and to our situations. Does this speak to me? Getting information in micro chunks, specifically short form video delivery. High quality designs. Again, think about when you're scrolling or trying to decide what product you're going to buy at a supermarket and you're overwhelmed with all these options. Where do you put your time, focus, attention, money, all of that? You're going to be drawn towards things that look high quality. And the last piece is this on-demand access. If we go back to thinking about, people that trust things that they believe will respect and value their time, that's kind of twofold. It's, can I access this in the time I have, when I have it? And none of this is specific to training content. This is just what earns trust with content in general. But when it does come to training content, we do have yet another hurdle. We have an added layer of complication here, and that our learning is our objective. We don't just want clicks or views or likes, or even just a really impulsive behavior like buying a product or anything like that. People need to not only receive the information in your training, but actively recall it later and understand how to apply it to their situation and be motivated to apply it to their situation, to see the benefit of changing their behavior basically permanently. So what this means for trading is that our audiences really want high quality micro learnings that are tailored to them in both its design and content. And what they really need are trainings rooted in learning theory, included things like spaced repetition. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to walk you through what got me invited here today, a little program that we created at the end of last year called the Play-by-Play. This is a series of 8 micro-learnings that were for our sales audience, but particularly our sales leaders. Its aim was to teach them how to provide coaching and feedback, primarily to their first-year sales reps, so that they did not discourage their sales reps and made them want to keep coming to trainings and made them want to stick out the summer, but also adequately prepared them for the challenges that they would face. So we have all of the obstacles with the sales audience that I mentioned already, not incentivized or compensated for training, not required to take them. Also, our surveys show that they're predominantly males in their early to mid 20s. And these are our sales leaders, not just our sales reps. So that means they have a proven record in sales. Some of them have been doing it for quite a number of years, and they might not think that they need this training, but we have to somehow get them to, once they click on it, to be inspired to stay with it for 8 courses. So how did we approach this? First thing was we decided our delivery was going to be 7 taps. First, a part of that reasoning being like it already checks a lot of the boxes that we talked about. It allows us to use microlearnings and short form video content. It makes it very easy to produce high quality designs very quickly, especially when partnered with things like Canva, which my team uses every day. And it gives us that on-demand access. Additionally, again, I mentioned that we survey a lot of our sales reps. Overwhelmingly, not just in their personal lives, but in their professional lives as well, the device they use the most often are their phones. They're not sitting down at desktops. They're using their phones to text and to use the sales app and to communicate with their partnered channels and things like that. So, and using 7 taps, we really adapted to our audience. We said, okay, you use your phones and you're very used to social media. We're going to mimic that environment. And instead of asking you to come to us, we're going to go to you and deliver this in a way that's conducive to what you already do, to the behaviors you already have. So that was part of our approach to the personalization. We took that a step further in that for the design, we pulled inspiration. Like I get on Pinterest all the time, or Dribble, or all of those sites to look at, what's new in graphic design, what's Nike doing, all these big brands that our audience might be engaging with. What is the kind of quality and just appearance of what they're looking at? So our play-by-play, we're going with a bit of a sports metaphor, which a lot of our trainings do. So this weird background you might see on some of these is supposed to be a turf. And the other part of that personalization was that we had the luxury of being able to use some really high-performing sales leaders for this training. We got them in our studio for 4 hours and were able to film with them and use them as examples. So I really said, like, these are people in your world, people that you know or maybe look up to that have really amazing outcomes and good numbers. We're going to show you how they got there. So we get that credibility and a bit of that buy-in. And I'll say, if you are not as privileged as us to have an in-house video team and you can just pull people to do all these custom videos, even pulling some of their headshots and getting them to email you some of their top tips and saying, this is what Jake says, this is what Sky says, can lend the same kind of credibility and personalization. So then going on to the relevance, we didn't just use short form videos, we tried to use them strategically. So we used it at the very beginning of the first course to kind of pull people in and say, we know this is a training, you don't have to do anything right off the bat. We haven't earned your trust yet. You don't know what you're signing up for. We're going to throw, in our case, again, we're very privileged, a high quality video at you with an example of showing a very typical one-on-one that might not actually seem like it's all that bad, but we prompted it with saying, like, how could it be even better? So a bit of, getting people to really critically think and saying, oh, that looks very typical to me. That's how a lot of my one-on-ones go. I didn't really think there was anything wrong with that, but you're saying it could be even better. So, again, for these audiences that might not feel like this is that relevant to them or they really need it, trying to really get that buy-in with both the look and the type of content we have. So to that end, we really kept the information at a minimum. We didn't overload the slides with a lot of content. If we did need to do an info dump, we kept it to a short 2 to 3 minute video that one of those sales reps presented. And we really focused on putting our learners in the driver's seat. I say all the time, make your learner the protagonist. Really put them in control of the training, that they are actively participating, not just engaging in terms of just clicking on things or clicking next or checking boxes, but they really have to critically think and be involved in the training which might sound like it is an obstacle to engagement, but when you have those achievable challenges, they make it fun. People, we like to be challenged in small ways. We like it when we're right on the cusp of being able to do something, or we think we know, and so we're eager to prove it, things like that. And then the last thing was that, again, it was a series of 8 courses. It was all 8 courses were available to our full audience immediately, but we sent reminders. We created a learning path, a feature I love in 7 Taps, and sent reminders every few days to up to a week to really promote the use of spaced repetition and encourage them not to consume all the content in one go, and instead allow that time to forget and then have to recall. That really solidifies learning. So here's a couple more examples of some slides. One is the first that you see here is, again, how we prompted them before they watched the videos to say, these are the kinds of things we want you to look out for and the questions we're going to ask you at the end. The middle one here is, this is the most text-heavy information slide we had in all the 8 courses, and it was in the very first one, just saying, here's the principles. We're going to focus on how you apply them, and an example of how we used open response. And you saw on the previous slide, we used a mix of open response and multiple choice as well to really challenge people to use and apply the information. That goes back to that relevance piece of, it's not just theory. This is a situation you will be faced with. This is something that you can very realistically hear a rep say, how would you apply this? How would you respond to that in real life? And then the results. Our engagement with the initial course reached 34%, which might not seem very high, but it is double the rate of the similar types of courses we've done with this audience, especially for a first-time training that doesn't have hard metrics for the outcomes or any precedent around it of people hyping it up because they've gone through it and it benefited them. With that being said, even though we're very happy with the results, we know there's room for improvement. We learned about partner channels and different ways that we can get this content to our sales leaders, not just sending it to their phones and sending it through text,